From here, depending on your Photoshop client, you can use Refine Edge or Select and Mask and give more of a refined edge to the hair on the model, so we can pick up individual hairs and outlines. Before clicking OK on the Refine Edge, let's output the selection to a layer mask. Now you can see the model is on a separate background. Let's duplicate the layer now. Then apply the mask we made from the previous layer. I'll rename this layer to the dispersion effect. Then I'll make a duplicate of this layer and rename it to man. Now I'll select the dispersion layer, then select filter, then liquefy. Next, I'll warp the model using the forward warp tool so we can make sure we can have a nice canvas for our effect later. This will determine the size of the dispersion effect. Take your time with the liquefy, then when you think you're done, hit OK. Now we'll make another mask, which we'll do by hitting Alt before clicking the new mask button, the little circle and a rectangle, so we fill the mask with black. This way, our dispersion effect is hidden until we need it. Before we continue, make the original background layer with our picture of our man hidden, so we can edit effects in. Now on our layer called Man, we'll make a new mask with no black filled in, so just click the new mask button without holding any keys down. Once we've done that, make sure you're on the Man layer's mask. Make sure your brush is set to black for the foreground color. Select the brush tool, then select a brush that will give a great dispersion effect. There are brushes out there for free that you can download that will give you the effect desired, so look for them. We'll edit the image to give a bit of a destroyed look. Then we'll switch to the dispersion layer and its mask as well. Switch the color to white, and start masking in, uncovering, the warped layer we did earlier. This will give you the effect of a dispersion going onto the image and looks really great. Experiment with this feature. It will allow you to create some really interesting images. Welcome back to our next tutorial in Photoshop, where we'll go over how to do a double exposure effect. A double exposure effect is how we'll blend two images together to make an interesting art project pop. Perhaps your client or project will want you to create some striking images here, and doing so through Photoshop, you will definitely wow the viewer of this image. Starting out, let's pick two images that we want to blend together. Here I'll blend an image of a beach ball with an orange. The idea of playing volleyball with a giant orange is pretty hilarious, don't you think? To start blending these two images together, I'll take the image of the orange, use the Quick Selection tool, and select the whole orange. Once I'll do that, I'll copy the orange selection into the image of the volleyball. As you can see here, the orange is way too large to be able to be blended with the volleyball. I'll need to scale the orange down to size. To do this, we'll need to make a copy of the volleyball layer to start off with. Drag the layer and make sure it's the top layer over the orange. Set the opacity to about 50%. Then we'll shrink the orange to about the same size of the volleyball. Do this by clicking the link icon up near the width and height. This way, with the opacity, we can see exactly what size we need the orange at. Apply the transformation when done. Next, we'll create a layer mask by clicking on the orange. Control-click the image to select all. Then move to the volleyball layer, and click the New Mask button at the bottom. Once we have that mask, we'll make a copy of the orange layer, and then make a black mask of that layer by holding the Alt key and clicking New Mask. Using the Quick Selection tool, we can select the parts of the volleyball we want to erase. Once we've gotten the image the way we want, you can see that it has this great dual blend effect of having a volleyball that looks like a huge orange. Make sure to leave on the background for the largest effect of showing off the volleyball orange in the scene. Now you know how to use layer masks to blend two images together. Welcome to the next tutorial in our Photoshop series. We'll be doing this tutorial about a great neon text effect for your text. It's a simple effect that will make it really fun to add text to your images of brick walls, or nighttime building photos, and more. First, we'll start out with a brick wall image. Any brick wall image will do, as we will put our text over it and make it glow. Let's add some text now to the image and write neon, probably in a cursive font of some kind. Make sure the font size is large enough to fit into the middle of the image. Next, we'll add a Hue and Saturation layer to the image, so select the background layer, then go to Layer, click New Adjustment Layer, and then Hue and Saturation. Set the saturation to pretty low, and the lightness as well, but not too dark. We want it to be bright enough that we can see the brick wall. Next, create a new layer which we'll call Clouds. You could do this, of course, by clicking the New Layer button at the bottom, which looks like a new page. Here we'll add clouds to the layer by clicking Filter, then Render, then Clouds. Create a black layer mask on that cloud layer by Alt-clicking the New Layer Mask button. Make sure your clouds layer is set to divide on the layer mode here. Let's use our brush tool here to uncover some clouds. Set the foreground color to white. Make sure the layer mask is selected. And set the opacity of our brush to about 50%. Make sure your brush hardness is also 0% as well. Once that's done, uncover some clouds behind the neon word. Next, we'll start working on our text. Make sure to change the font of the text to something blue if it isn't already. And go into the layer blending modes. We'll add a bevel and emboss effect to the text, making sure the style is inner bevel. The technique is smooth. The depth 185, the direction up, the size 3, and the soften 16. We'll also add an inner shadow effect, where the blend mode is multiply, the opacity 40%, the distance 5, the choke 0, and the size 5. Then we'll add an inner glow effect, where the mode is screen, the opacity 75, the noise 0, the choke 0, and the size 8. Make sure to make the technique here source center. Then hit OK. Create a duplicate layer of that text. Put it below the top layer of text, then convert it to a smart object. Add a Gaussian filter using the Filter dropdown, Blur, then Gaussian Blur. Set the radius to about 11 pixels. Now we'll create the wire that the neon sign is connected to the wall by creating a new layer above the clouds layer. Set your brush first to one with a full hardness and about 13 pixels in width. Use the pen tool here on the layer and click and drag out a line across the layers here in a curvy wave. Right-click on the line and click Stroke Path. Make sure the Simulate Pressure option is turned on. Right-click the path, then click Delete Path. We'll add a blending layer effect to the line, bevel and emboss. Make sure that the depth is 245 size 0, and soften 3. Lastly, we'll add a more soft blue glow to the clouds in another layer. Add another layer on top of this layer, then switch to a soft brush with no hardness, with the size close to the size of our letters. Set the opacity to about 63%. Brush in some blue. Set the layer blending to soft light. And there you have it. Our neon sign is complete. Welcome to our next Photoshop tutorial. This time we'll be doing a great fire text effect. This can create a great illusion of text that looks like it's either made of fire or on fire. We've already started with a great fire effect image we'll use later in the tutorial. We'll proceed by opening a new file, making the height 1280 and the width 720. Change the background to black by using the Paint Bucket tool, and make sure the foreground color is black. Use the Text tool next, and a great tall font. I'll type the word fire here so we can see the effect on it later. Let's go to the blending options on our layer and add an outer glow. Change the color in the box here to F70300, then hit OK. Select the satin blending next and change that color to 872D0F, and hit OK as well. Change the opacity on the satin effect to 100%. Change the distance to 10 pixels, then hit OK. Now select Inner Glow. Change the blend mode to Color Dodge here. Next, change the color to E5C23B, then hit OK. Change the opacity to 100%, the size to 10 pixels, then hit OK. Now we're done with our text, so hit right-click on the text layer and rasterize our type. Now we're going to fade out the top of our fire text. So use the eraser tool and set the brush to 250 pixels with 0 hardness. Erase some of the text as you see here. Now we'll go up to Filter, Distort, then Zigzag. Set the amount to 4 and the ridges to 4. Make sure the style is set to Pond Ripples and hit OK. Now we'll select our fire image we've opened and copy that into our text image we're working on. Position the fire image over our text, then we'll switch over to the Channels tab here next to our layers. Hold Ctrl and click the green layer to load a selection of the areas of fire in our image. Head back to the Layers tab, then press Ctrl J to make a copy of the selection we got from the Channels tab. Delete our original fire layer. Here I'll rename the layer Fire Main to stay organized. We'll move the fire around to wherever we like in the image. From here, we'll resize the image to fit over our text, then duplicate the layers so we can make more fire effect on our text. Be sure to resize, rotate, and erase edges of the fire around the text so it looks like the text is on fire realistically. And that's how you do this effect. In our next tutorial for Photoshop, let's create a great lens flare effect for our photos. Of course, you could use the lens flare effect in Photoshop, but it usually comes out pretty cheaply made and poorly well done. We'll go make our own effect and have it look great and professional. So we'll take our image of a sunset in the back here and add a new layer to the scene. Then we'll take a brush and make sure the hardness is set to 0, the size to about 300, and then we'll change the color of our brush to white. Next, we'll paint a spot, and then zoom in to the brush effect on our image. We'll add some noise to our effect using Filter, Noise, Add Noise. Use about 3.5% of noise. Make sure it's uniform and monochromatic. And hit OK. The noise is going to prevent the effect from banding if we scale the effect. Now let's duplicate the layer. Through the right-click Duplicate Layer option, or you can use Ctrl-J. We'll name the new layer White, and the old layer Orange. Next, we'll add color to the orange layer. Hide the white layer. Then go to Image, Adjustments, then Hue and Saturation. We'll color it by turning on the Colorize option. Move the hue over to a nice orange, and the saturation near 100%. You can make it a little lighter or darker if you'd like. Now we'll set the orange layer to a blend mode of screen. Then we'll set the white layer to a blend of linear dodge add. With the orange layer, we're going to free transform. Draw out our orange layer a bit, making sure that the link is selected to keep the ratio. Commit the changes. We'll select both layers, and we can drag it wherever we want. So let's move them over the sun in the image, and then free transform the effect so it's large and covering the sun. Make sure your two images are centered together. Now we have our lens flare effect. If you want to make sure that you don't want to wash out the color in the image, go to the orange layer, set it to screen, and then the white layer to linear dodge add. Change the opacity of the orange layer down to 50% or so. With the white layer, we're doing the trick here, which is the fill opacity rather than the actual opacity. Set that to about 15% or 20%. You can play with the opacity and fill layer here, and also do some transforming and stretching the lens flare effect to hit more parts of the photo. This is a very quick and easy way to generate a lens flare that you have full control over the way it looks on your image. Welcome to the next tutorial in our Photoshop series. We're going to go over a way to create a quick lomography effect. And a lomography effect is a type of effect that you might see on Instagram photos or other types of photos that make it look kind of a hipster-like or retro look. Now, it's very easy to create this look. It's actually extremely fast to create this look in Photoshop. All you have to do is open up a photo. You can see, for example, I have a photo right here. You want to go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and Curves. And we're going to make a new Curves layer here. Now I'm going to make the Curves layer called the lomography effect, which we'll go ahead and type that in. And you can see we've got a nice little layer that goes over our background. It also has its own layer, so that way we won't have to worry about making the effect on the image and not having it affect the image permanently. So the way we start this effect is we go through and check out the curves. So we've got the histogram here, and we want to start out by actually putting a point here and dragging it down a little bit, which you see will actually drag down some of the shadows in the image. And then you want to put a little point up here and drag that one up, which will actually drag in some more light into the image. Then we'll go into the red, and we'll actually put a little point there, drag that down a little bit so we can get some more in there. But we actually want to drag the shadows up a little bit so we can get some more darkness, depth to the image. We also want to drag up the end here as well. And go to the green, and do the same thing. Drag up a little bit there. Drag down a little bit at the top. And then when we get to the blue, we'll actually do this a little bit different. We actually want to drag up on the previous one, and we actually want to drag down at the top here. which will actually add a lot of different blues to the image there. So if we go back to the original RGB, we can actually pull up the shadows a bit because we want to create that kind of soft tone in the shadows as well. And by doing that, that allows us to create a great lomography effect. It's actually kind of overdone here. It's a little bit too much on the image. So if we go to the opacity, and when they turn the opacity down to maybe about like 50, 55, you can see that it has put itself over the image, and you can see a nice effect on your image that gives it kind of a hipster or retro look. And you can turn on and off the layer to see the difference in the image as we put the Lomo effect on. And that's pretty much it for this tutorial. Welcome to our advanced GIMP tutorial where we'll actually show you a way how to do digital black and white conversion. It's quite an easy effect to do. We'll start by opening up an image that you might have seen before on a previous tutorial. We'll open that up and we'll show you how we'll be able to do the conversion here. Now, you can do a saturate effect in GIMP as well, but what I like to do is create a new layer. So we'll go over here and we'll go ahead and make a new layer. We'll make that transparent, that's fine. And from there, we'll also create a layer mask. So go ahead and add a layer mask to this layer. Make sure that it's set to white so it's full opacity. And you want to change this layer's mode to saturation. And by changing this layer's mode to saturation, you'll be able to change the opacity on the saturation on the layer. To get the saturation on the layer, you'll go over to the bucket tool and you will put in black on the actual layer itself. And this will create desaturation of the layer. And you'll be able to see the entire layer is in black and white. Now, you can set the opacity on this so the effect is not that dramatic. So you can have some color, you can have less color, all the way up to 100%. So you can change this as you will. Instead of just using the saturation effect, which will be one time only, you can use this to great effect to choose the granular control over the black and white conversion effect. Now what you can also do is with this and having the mask, you can go to the original layer itself, use the scissors tool, and you can pick out parts of the image you want to have in color itself. So if you see here, I have picked out some of the glasses to be in color, and the scissors tool is one of the best tools for this as it tries to find the edges of the glasses on our background layer here. And of course, you could drag each point to make sure it tries to find all of the different parts of the glasses, and then we'll go ahead and click inside to select it. And if we do that and then go back to our layer mask for our saturation layer, we can go in there and we can select the brush tool, make sure it's set to black because we're going to be painting on the layer mask so we can make the color shine through. And you can just start painting in those glasses there and make those glasses show up in actual color compared to the rest of the image. And that's just a very quick way of how to do digital black and white conversion in GIMP. Welcome to the next in our tutorial series about GIMP. In this next tutorial, we'll go over a quick way how to do a coloring of a sketch that you might scan in or you have received on the internet. And it's really easy to start coloring in GIMP. To start, we'll go ahead and have our sketch open, as you can see right here, and we will go ahead and add a new layer above that sketch. So we'll go ahead and make that a transparent layer, and we will also make sure that that layer is set to multiply instead of normal, because if it is set to normal, you'll just draw the color over the sketch beneath that layer. But with multiply, it actually adds the color over the layer, but in a way so that the previous layer on the bottom shows through. So if you see right here, we've set our color to something that's a little bit more skin toned. Make sure to do that as well, hit OK. And then we will start coloring in over top our sketch. And you can see just by coloring in here with the color that we picked, a nice skin tone color, we can start to get the sketch to look more like something that is 3D or an actual colored in sketch. Now this is a part of the longer process here, is to color in all the parts you need. So I'm going to do just a really quick once over so that way it doesn't take too long and you can see the effects, but also we're not too worried about it being too messy. So as you can see there, I've colored in her face on this sketch. What we can also do is switch a little bit to the burn tool. We'll switch to the dodge and burn tool, then we'll switch to burn down here at the bottom on the options, so that way we can put in some shadows in the image where we think where the shadows are. And we can make sure to change your size of your brush. You can use that using the bracket keys on your keyboard. Left bracket, right bracket changes the size of your brush. And we'll brush in some shadows here on the image, right where the shadows seem to be. If you have a sketch that has the shadows on it, it makes it easier for you to burn in some shadows. And every time you click and burn in the shadows, it will stack on top of each other. So it will make the shadows darker and darker as you continue burning. Now you can see that there are lines here that we can easily tell between the color and the shadows. So from there, we can do a little bit of smudging. And smudging allows us to mix the colors together so that way they are not just lines on the picture. So we'll actually turn down the rate here of the smudging so that way it's not too obvious, and we'll start doing a little bit of smudging on the image here. We can make the lines turn into actual colors instead of very apparent as lines. And that is a very quick and easy way to get started with coloring in Gimp. Welcome to the next in our tutorials about Gimp. In this advanced tutorial, we'll show you how to do some tone mapping on the images that you might need to get some extra color or some extra different shadows and cool things that you would like to get on your photos. Starting out, what we'll do is take a picture right here. I've got a picture of a good night scene. We'll go ahead and start is we'll create a duplicate layer of the night scene. And what we need to do is create a special enhancement filter called Advanced Tone Mapping. Now, this doesn't normally come with Gimp, so I recommend that you go find a plugin for Advanced Tone Mapping. It's very easy to find on the internet. Gimp itself has a repository of plugins that you're able to find Advanced Tone Mapping. And once you get that and install it into your Gimp plugin folder, you're going to go into Gimp and use Enhance Advanced Tone Mapping under the filters. Then there, that will show you a pop-up dialog window that you'll want to switch the copies of the merge layer. You want to make it about 5. Press OK. It'll create a bunch of different colors and make the whole thing look really good. From there, you want to right-click on the layer and click Merge Down. And just merge down until you get one picture, one layer. Next, you'll want to go up to the colors and do levels. And on the levels, you want to switch that to maybe about 94, 93, or 92 on the gamma. Press OK there so we can get that into our picture. The next thing you want to do is create another duplicate layer. And then on that layer, you want to click Colors, Desaturate. And from there, you want to actually have it at lightness. You can do luminosity, you can do average. You can see that it changes the different shades of gray. But let's choose lightness, click OK. And then you want to go back over to colors, click invert, and you'll see all the different colors inverted here. Then you want to go to filters, blur, Gaussian blur. And you want to set that blur to about, I think I want to do 20. 20 here seems fine. So now to blur the whole image, what we're going to do with this blurred image is we are going to switch the mode on the top layer here to overlay. And now you'll see it has overlaid onto our image down below. And you want to tweak this by using the opacity bar over here on the right. So we're going to set that to about 48, and then we will merge the layers down, and now you can see we have our new image that shows the different tone maps of color that are in our night sky image. And that's how you get some tone maps in your Gimp program. Welcome to the next in our tutorials about Gimp. In this next tutorial, we'll show you how to create a contrast mask for your image. To create a contrast mask for your image, you've opened a previous image you may have seen on our previous tutorials here. To start with, we will create a duplicate layer of the image. Then on there, we will right-click, click Add Layer Mask, and you want to initialize the layer mask to a grayscale copy of the layer. Then, show the layer mask so we can see what we're looking at. Go over to Colors, Invert, and then you want to also give a filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And then set that to about 4 or 5 on the blur radius. Next, go back to your layer mask, click Show Layer Mask to turn it off, and there you can see we have our contrast mask on our layer. Now make sure to set your layer to overlay instead of normal, so that way you can see our contrast on top of our bottom layer in Gimp. And you can change the opacity, so you can change the contrast through this contrast mask in Gimp. And that's all you need to know about making a contrast mask in Gimp. Welcome to the next tutorial in our Advanced Gimp tutorial series. This tutorial will show you about how to use luminosity masks to help you with your photos, so that way you can reduce some of the saturation in the colors of your photos, or just in general have better control over what you see inside of your photos. To start off, we have an image open here, which we're going to use luminosity masks to remove some of the saturation in the photo so we can see more of the mountain behind. So if you go over to the left, you can see we are normally on our layers section here, and we want to create a copy of our original layer, so duplicate layer. And then we want to go over to channels, and you can see what we're going to do here is select our red channel from the rest of our channels here. We want to select all on our image. I'm going to drag the red channel down to the copy down here, and then we will start by creating this one as the L for light, because we're going to save the highlights of the image and we're going to save the shadows of the image. We'll start this by right-clicking on the light part of the image, and we will subtract from selection. Make sure your entire image is still selected. That will select the darker parts of the image. And we will go to Select, Save to Channel. That'll actually save the shadows of the image, so we'll save that as D for dark. And then if you right-click on our layer again, our light channel here, click Subtract from Selection one more time, it gets even further darker, and we'll save that as DD. And then we'll go back to our lights again, subtract from selection one more time, and we'll save that as DDD. So that way you can see all the different shadows have been saved now out of our image, and we'll now go and save the lighter parts of our image instead of our darker parts. So select none, then go to our darker parts of our image, select all, and when you do this, you will get the lighter parts of the image instead of the darker parts, and you will do the same thing as you did before, which is you will click Save to Channel, and then I'll save this as LL, go back to the dark parts, subtract from selection, and we'll do it again, select, Save to Channel, and then we'll save that as LLL. In doing this, you will have created a whole bunch of different channels for your different shadows and highlights in your image, and we'll be using that as a part of our layer masks to create luminosity masks. Now, if you go back over to the layers, you can click on your copy, which I'll set here as light mask, and then I'll make another copy of this, which we'll call the dark mask. And then for the light mask, we'll right click and then make sure that your selection is none. So we'll right click on the light mask, click add layer mask. Instead of normally you would make it white, we'll set it to channel. And you can see under our channel, we actually have all of our different channels here for our shadows and our highlights. So if we go to our light channel, we can add that, and it will actually change it so you can see our light channel removes all of our shadows from the image. And now we're able to edit the image of our luminosity layer by going to colors and colorize, making sure that our light mask layer is chosen, not the mask itself. And with the sliders here, you can see I can change the hue of the image to make it a lot better, and the lightness of the image, so that way it can come through without too much saturation going on in the image. And you can compare that to the original image, which you'll see here. Saturation, removed saturation. And there's a lot more things you can do with luminosity masks in Gimp. Welcome to the next in our advanced tutorial series in Gimp. In this tutorial, we'll show you how to remove noise from photos where pictures have been taken that have a lot of noise in them. And here you'll see we have started with a picture that has a bunch of noise in it, and we're going to remove the noise, and we can do this in many different ways, including going to the filter option, blur. We can do a regular blur, or we can do a Gaussian blur. And a lot of people like to use these blurs to get rid of the noise in the image. However, there is a better tool to get rid of the noise in images. It is an extra Gimp plugin that you can go find. Once you download that and put it into your Gimp program, you'll see it under your Enhance Filter options, and it's called Wavelet Denoise. And Wavelet Denoise will allow you to bring up this dialog box that produces a better algorithm to remove the noise from your images. And when you go into it, you can see a preview of the image and the noise that will get reduced. So you can move around and find where most of the noise is coming from. And then you can go down to the thresholds and you can turn up the amount of noise being removed from the image. And you can decide whether or not you want to have more or less detail left in the image. And you can also change how much detail can be conserved when you start applying the denoise filter to the image. And then you hit OK, and you can see that it has reduced a lot of the noise in the image, and you can tweak this as you like. And there are many other different ways you can do this, but this is probably one of the best ways to remove noise from an image to make it look a little bit better to your clients or to any projects you might have in the future. And that is a quick way of how to remove extra kinds of film grain or noise in your images in Gimp. Welcome to the next tutorial in Gimp. This is a very quick tutorial, part 1, about changing background color in Gimp. It's actually a very quick way to do this in Gimp, especially if you have an image that already has a background color you'd like to remove. So the fastest way to change the color in your background is go up to Colors, Color to Alpha, and then you will see that there will be a color picker that you can pick down here, a little drop-down box from blank color to alpha, and then you can click on this little eyedropper here, click on the image, then go back to your color picker, press OK, and you'll see on the preview that it has removed the color from your background. Click OK there. The color will have been removed from your background. You may now add a new layer to your image. Make sure to have it as a transparent layer. Drag that layer beneath your current layer, which you removed your color by putting it into alpha. And then you can use the bucket fill tool to switch to any other color you'd like to add to your image. And that is the very basics about changing a background color in Gimp.